All right, everyone. I am super excited today because on the podcast we have the one and only Ron Thaler. Ron is a producer, drummer, sound designer, CEO, a world traveler, musician, and coach, and has blessed us with his time today. Ron has worked with artists such as Moby, Gwen Stefani, Alicia Keys, David Guetta. The list goes on, including some video games as well. So I'm super excited. But above and beyond that, perhaps his biggest achievement is staying grounded in an industry where it's easy to get uprooted with great success. And so I'm extremely grateful that you're here. I also want to introduce Ben. Hi, Ben.
G'day.
Ben is an artist, and Ben is currently working on some music with Ron as well.
Yes.
So I'm super excited to have you both
Hence,
here.
we're sharing this couch.
Yes,
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just first of all, thank you both for your time, and I just really love to hear your insights, and we're just gonna have a good conversation and a good discussion, and so thank you for being here. Yeah.
Of course.
Excellent. I'll try to keep it clean.
Not necessary. You can.
Okay, then I'll try to keep it not clean.
We'll find out how it goes. And I guess so. I'll lead with the first question for Ron, which is that in a industry that is constantly changing, are there any constants that apply across the decades for music and for artists?
So, from my point of view, that's an extremely interesting question because the theory of what evolution is kind of at the root of what your question is asking. First thing I'm going to throw out there is in the days when a harpsichord was created, it was considered technology. And a piano is technology. Everything is technology, not just the notion of a digital audio workstation, plugins, microphones, so on and so forth. Everything changes constantly. What doesn't change is, from my standpoint, the core messagery and the value of what it is to write what I call in intimacy and not in ones and zeros. And in the history of music, including today, in spite of some of the artificially created stories to drive an optic about an artist or a circumstance or situation, at the end of the day, being an artist is in fact about being very honest with your own voice, the details of your own existence, and finding a way using your own perception to craft something and to share something of yourself. In other words, it's an offer, so that the rest of the world's perspectives align with what it is that you have as a perception. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but if there's one thing that there's no difference from what I can see from 150 years ago to today, is that integrity in the context of the art itself will always supersede any of the other considerations that are involved in music making.
Mm-hmm. That's super interesting. It's reminding me of something that I came across recently on social media, where I think Martin Scorsese had said that the most personal is the most creative, and I feel like that connects to what you're saying as well.
Absolutely.
And that, I guess, is also when you have timeless music that over the decades is still relevant today and still meaningful today. It shows that that's the authenticity behind that, right?
Well, timelessness itself is an interesting thing. Also, the term time, me having, my first foray into music is drumming, and all the albums and all the things that I played on, and all the sessions and the touring and so on. And time is elastic, and the thematic of what timelessness actually means is itself a debatable feature. So we now have an environment where 70,000 uploads go a day onto Spotify. Does the fact that it is in a physical, or rather non-physical, ones and zeros form make it foundationally timeless? In other words, that it can trespass eras, it can trespass storage limitations, it can do many different things. Timelessness in music has become more of a marketing term than for me than it actually is a reflection of the music. Music is music. Art is art. It doesn't matter the media it's in. It doesn't matter the reasons why it exists. What matters is that it exists. And art is continuity. In fact, I'd say that that's one of the core thematics upon which somebody who enters the world of arts, somebody who wants to contribute and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm seeing. Are you seeing the same thing? Do you think this is what's going on? You have to be a defender of the truth. And as we know, in political spheres, and it's the same thing if you talk about the politics of the world or the politics just in the music industry, you have environments which want to drive a perception, drive a belief, and erase another. And it's exactly the same thing in the music industry. So the notion of timelessness really only has real relevance in my mind with some financial structures associated with music and things that we call the long tail, which means that if you have a song and it has an energy, right, around a certain period of time, and its usages continue because people are drawn to it, they're glued to it, there's something about it that is very important in their perspective or in their involvement with whatever, their enjoyment, or it was, how they met their wife or what have you. So for them, it becomes timeless. And if that occurs for enough people, the reflection of it is in what we call today the valuation of the intellectual property. Bob Dylan, is a perfect example of somebody who just recently sold his master and publishing rights for the catalog, at least that exists in the musical, sphere that is known to us, for $700 million. And the reason is that financially it's been proven that every year he's very consistently earning money on that catalog. So you could define that as timeless, and then you could go and see one show. And something so miraculous happens in that show, at least in terms of how it, resonates with you, that you say that show is timeless for you. I remember going to see one of my idols, the people that I loved as a drummer who really inspired me and I thought so much of. I just landed in New York. I saw that he was performing in this, I think it was with Columbia University, with one of the big bands that were there. And I went and I saw him and I was sitting in the crowd. And it was just such an amazing experience for me. And just watching it go down. And then he did something at one moment that had this impact on me that was hard to explain. It was almost like quantum physics that just smacked me in the face. It was something very specific, but what was interesting to me is that I noticed right at that moment that it had a similar impact on a group of 3 people that were sitting just in front of me and to my left. And I'm like, that's very interesting. So there are tissues that connect things that maybe for some people make something more profound than for others. And, we're, of a certain age, so we have a certain life experience. We understand, we don't think about the same thing today, or we don't think about them in the same way as we used to think about them. Simplest example I can give to anybody, and you can go test this out, is think of a book you read when you were 10 or 15 years old. Go pick it up now and read it now. It's the same words, it's the same length, it's the same everything, but what you're going to draw out of it is entirely different. So the weight of art, the weight of music, the weight of the impact, because of all these things, because of what we call timelessness, which for me it's too nebulous, it's too generalistic a term, that's in fact the whole point of why you do it. Because whether it becomes timeless as somebody else defines it, or for you or so on, it doesn't matter. It is, through its existence, a form of timeless perfection in some regard.
It's interesting what you said about seeing something differently at different ages in your life. It's almost like we're not seeing it as what it is, it's as who we are, right? And so we're experiencing it from a different place each time, which would explain why I've rewatched The Lord of the Rings like 10 times in a row, but it still keeps fresh. But I wanted to ask, what was it that you saw, on stage that kind of had that impact on you?
So,
Specifically?
from a drummer's standpoint, if we'll define it from a drumistic standpoint, it was a particular move that he did that created this type of synergistic perfection with what was happening in the music. So it's as if the tone of the toms, the tone of the snare, the tone of the floor tom, the particular rhythmic shape that he chose for that moment, the intensity with which it was played, because as you know, any instrument, you play it loud, it has one sound. You play it soft, it has a different sound. And then everything in between. And then as a drummer, what we are really is the leader of an orchestra, because every drum is itself like a component in an orchestra. And then our biomechanics and our independence and how we integrate and deal with all those things, that's what it is. It's a reflection of how we manage that orchestra. So his orchestra, within the context of the orchestra, found an absolute perfect unity. And it was so perfect as to be resounding in a way that I had never experienced as let's say as an audience member. I had experienced it on stage in performing, where there's this thing, and then you suddenly realize it and you're in this zone, and you and the other guys on stage, and you're doing a thing. It's like, oh, whoa, what is happening? It's almost like you're levitating.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of become conscious of it, it disappears.
Yeah.
And I had never experienced that as a fan. And so to me, that's just like the alignment of a gashmillion different things just funneling to this one moment. And I had the great privilege of having been there and watched this go down. So, it's like doubly inspirational for me.
Yeah. And I think that's something that artists chase sometimes their whole careers, trying to get that one kind of perfect moment where it all comes together. And it's almost like a flow state. I think the Japanese might call it ikigai, where it's like you're aligned with, yourself, the music, the audience, and the message that's underlying that doesn't have any words. It's just sonic, right?
It's like perfect imperfection. It's everything is unified. It's that moment. It's hard to explain. It's like love. You have a hard time defining it, really, until you no longer have it. And then you know exactly the weight of what it is. And, right, writers, musicians, so on. Love is one of the core thematics that has been explored for eons and in so many different ways, and different genres, different approaches, different time signatures, different everythings. And it's like we're in the perpetual state of attempting to define and to understand something that we know exists, but we can't express it except when we are sure it no longer does in an environment, in a relationship, and so on. And that's kind of the beauty of the perfect imperfection. It just rides, and it's always there. And as you say, tapping into it or becoming aware of it or finding processes or strategies, or sometimes we say, in band vernacular, if you will, when you find, as a drummer, when you find that bass player that you and that person have such a complete, perfect, interlocking understanding of pulse and vibe, and you're just so in sync with each other, you're supposed to sleep with them, right? And that's how it's supposed to go forever. And then they go everywhere with you, and that's the only person you work with, and that's how it is forever.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've had the benefit of a couple of those guys being in my life, and It's just this interpretive dance that has no words. But when you're not with them anymore, you have the clarity of why it was that perfectly imperfect and beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think it's so interesting that you said that, over aeons, people have been trying to find ways to define or express that love. And it's fascinating that we try and do it through music, because oftentimes words fall short to describe those enormous feelings. And that's where music as a universal language has the power to do that, right? But I guess I wanted to ask Ben a question about experiencing something, grand on stage or from a piece of art. Have you had anything that has made you feel that kind of moment that Ron's had, of like, whoa, like that's going to change my life, or that's changed something within me, when you've observed someone, either whether it's a musician or, watching a movie or a great piece of art, whatever format it comes in?
I think for me, probably one of the top artists that I ever saw that I just went wow with would have been Paul McCartney.
Oh, wow.
I saw him
Where'd you see him? Yeah.
Suncorp at home. So I'm from Brisbane, Australia.
Yeah.
And he was on a tour there. And I had an opportunity to buy a ticket for, I think it was like $40 or something I paid.
Whoa.
And I thought, I'm not missing this.
Yeah.
And it was one of those moments where I was there and engaged the entire time. It was magical. It was...
Had you been a big fan of the Beatles going into it?
Not a huge fan. I was obviously very well aware of what they've done and whatnot. And I did some tours and things where I kind of got to, like tours of facilities. So I kind of had a very good knowledge of the process of them. But actually seeing Paul McCartney live was that moment for me that was just like, wow.
Amazing.
This is
Was
incredible.
there a particular song that he was doing, or was it just like the process of
I think
being on stage? And
I think just being able to see him
yeah.
and being able to, really tick that off a bucket list to say, oh,
Yeah.
I was able to see one of the Beatles. And that for me was, that moment.
That's
it was
incredible.
pretty special.
Yeah. Well, I was very lucky that when I was 10, my mom, bless her, she managed to get me a Michael Jackson ticket in Switzerland. And I'm so grateful now to be able to say that I saw him at least once on stage. And of course, the Zurich Stadium was so packed out and they didn't have, the big LED screens back then. We ended up buying binoculars, and we were in the back row, but we just loved it, and it changed me. And I ended up going home and asking if my mom could make me that golden vest. So she made that for me, and she really nurtured that. And so those things always stand out to me as moments where I'm like, this is why I chose to make music for the rest of my life.
Ignited that passion.
Yeah.
I may have seen the Chili Peppers' worst gig ever.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
In Switzerland.
In Switzerland.
In Switzerland, yes. Unfortunately, I was doing a clinic tour there. Oh my God, this is so many years ago, and the rep from Sabian Cymbals was like, "Hey, I got the Chad's in town and playing and blah 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 and." We'll hang out with him and everything and so on afterwards, but you down to basically going and seeing the show? And I said, yeah, I think, time-wise it works great. So I went and I saw them in the stadium.
And it was the worst gig ever.
And it might have been one of the worst shows ever. I think it was the last show or the second to last show of an extremely extended, long tour that they had been on, and they were rather out of sync.
Yeah.
And or maybe they had a fight backstage, or I don't listen.
Well,
I have no
idea.
idea.
It was a long tour, right? You never know how burnt out they were.
The vibe wasn't there.
Yeah.
And
was it packed out? Like, was the stadium full?
It was pretty. I mean, from my memory, it looked pretty full. I don't know. It was just an odd experience, and it was not what I was expecting. And then. We went backstage and we hung out for a little bit and, too much kerfuffle, shall we say. And so I just went back. I think we went out for dinner and then I just went back to the hotel because I had my tour had to continue the next day, and I sort of had to kind of be in a reasonable shape, shall we say, to, do the things I had to do the next day. But it's just funny because you talk about, Switzerland, and that's one of the. I have a few stories from Switzerland. Probably I can't say most of them on air, but that one was one that I remember to this day, and I'm like, it's really weird. It's surprising because I love that band. I love the energy. I mean, I have a whole production subset of things that I do that are derivative entirely from Chad's drum sound on his whole thing. It's a
Amazing.
bank of Scullies that I run through ribbon mics and 121s, and that's all you got to do. And then there it is. There's the Chili Peppers drum sound on almost
That's
every single
iconic.
album.
Yeah, that's iconic.
So for me, there's a vibe, there's a thing, there's something special, and it was a little. I have to admit, it's disappointing.
Well, I guess it goes to show that everyone's got their down day occasionally, right?
Of course,
Like no one can operate at that 100% level all the time.
No.
This is a marathon. Being in the arts, being a musician, no matter at what point you are in it, and starting, it's a marathon, and you're running this marathon, and it's your whole life, and you got to be aware that that's what it is. So, slow and steady. Just get to the places. It's a construct, and no human being can endlessly go. Even if you're artificially induced, if you understand what I mean. Even at a certain point, you still hit a limit. We have our abilities, and we have our needs. And your body, your mind, you have to have a certain measure of clarity, even emotional dexterity to be able to create and craft good art and to see truths and to be responsive to those truths, and then also your responsibilities in life and all these things. And right, if you're running a studio, if you're you this is your family. This is, you have to be responsible to them. So you have to be aware that limitations exist. And I remember many times where I'm like,
Were you like close to burnout, or
what
just
do you
had a
mean,
moment?
close to? Yeah.
Hit the burnout at 110?
Yeah, I would say that from my being productive to the benefit of artists with whom I was working, 100% I was burned out. And so I needed to just accept that my limits, they exist, and they're going to tell me when I've crossed them. Even if my agenda says I got this, and then I got this next thing, and then I got this other thing, and then I got this, and I want to be responsible to the next project, or to the business partners, to whatever the structure happens to be.
Yeah.
But you have your limits, and I did push some of those limits. And I mean, one of the things I think you and I had spoken about last time is that I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. I've never done any of those things.
Yeah.
I do chocolate,
Which is
probably,
amazing to say, by the way, for what you've done in your career. So.
Well, I do chocolate better than most.
Okay.
So I will admit
It's a vice that you're allowed.
Well, apparently. But so what I always thrive on is essentially truth and being engaged and just being present and stuff. And that's very, very important to me. So you need a lot of energy, right? You need to raise essentially the energy of everyone around you very often, also to carry it forward to, and me a little, so I use laughter, I use, I have certain techniques, I have certain things, and none of it's transactional, it's just the situation that demands it, and we just move forward, and that's what it is.
Yeah. Is it that you find that when you're creating an environment which makes people comfortable, they also make better art as a result?
Depends on the artist. I would say in general, so maybe the best way I could put this is like this. I'd say in general, trauma takes the longest time to transform into qualitative, valuable art. I would say fear takes the least amount of time to transform into qualitative art. But to do those things, you still have to be engaged, and you have to be, in particular, honest and revealing. And that's most of the time the impediments to finding your true voice, right? We all start out in a sense, we all have our idols. we have the people we care about, like, you know, I was talking about before. We all have who we think we should be. And so we fight for that. We fight because we see what we believe to be the success of others being a reflection of what we try to find, some kind of algorithm that we want to apply, or some kind of
That's a
pattern.
big one
or
at
some
the
kind
moment in the world, isn't it? With the TikTokers and
you know, like, okay, they do this, so I got to do this. They do this. But it's actually not that. It's, in fact, the exact opposite. It's the quicker you can find connection to your truth, whatever that is, and in a sense, the modest acceptance that that truth is good enough. In other words, that what you have to say and who you are and the experiences you've had, good, bad, or otherwise, that all of that is good enough. That's where art is made. And it's funny because I've been speaking to Benny a lot about this particular trip, and I have an extremely high bar when I use the word artist. Just like I have an extremely high bar when I use the word producer or I use the word creator. So buying a Digio 2 system, shoving it in your house, opening up a session, throwing in some plugins, and just singing into a microphone and letting whatever happens happen, that's not art. Art has a measure of immediacy, intimacy, and intelligence all built into it. It's not just because you can make a sandwich that you're an artist. It's the exact same difference between everybody you know goes to school. Everybody you know goes to English class. Everybody learns all the words. Everybody knows all these words. Everybody learns to write them. There's dictation. There's this. There's that. You got to hand in an essay. Whatever. Blow. All these words.
everybody uploads to Spotify too at the moment.
Right. So if you have all these words, what's the difference between you and a writer? Why is it that some people can write books, get published, and connect, where other people just, it's the same words. They know those same words. What is it about the way they organize those words? What is it about the message that is included in that organization? So people love to call themselves artists. It's like a almost become a weaponized term to suggest in an extremely meist society that the meanness of me is the grandest of grand. And I'm like, sorry, that's complete bullshit. That is not art.
Yeah.
And so you brought up timeless, right, as the thematic. Because you upload something to Spotty, does that make it timeless? Well, technologically, in a manner of speaking, it kind of does. Does that mean that it's art? No.
No.
It just means it's distributed. Does it mean that it has any impact in the way that what we consider art that has impact to have? No. So I have old school tendencies in some regards. The old school tendency that I do have when it comes to a human being defined as an artist, it's a much longer schematic than simply going to a store, buying gear, turning it on, throwing some things into it, and calling yourself a producer or an artist. That's not what it is.
Gotcha.
All being an artist is predicates that. It's not existing because.
So a follow-up question with that in mind: when does someone who does that, goes to the store, buys the gear, when in your opinion do they transition from that phase into being an artist? When do they blossom into it? Do you have a specific point in mind?
When the perspective of others no longer has a defense, against the art that they present.
I love that. I love that answer. And I think that's something that I personally wrestle with a lot in my journey of making music, where it's like I want to walk the line of being authentic, and every song that I release, it has something that I hope other people can take away in a spiritual, meaningful way. But then how do I walk the line of being authentic and also making music people actually want to listen to, you know? And
this is a lovely interview. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What does that mean, music that other people actually want to listen to? Because that's an extremely interesting sentence that I think is a very powerful one that exists in our modern framework. And our modern framework is run by accountants, not by artists, by and large. So I ask you, what does that mean to you?
I think that maybe there's two meanings. One would be you have your commercial meaning, where it's like, oh, what's mainstream? What do people like at the moment? Oh, K-pop is really in, you know, like, should I be making a K-pop song? No. But then I feel like the way that I've tried to wrestle with this question is to be like, hey, I have a lot that I want to say. How do I package it in a way that means something when the other person listens, so that they want to listen to it?
Why are you thinking about them at all in your process?
I think that I spend a lot of time just focusing on what I want to say and having that be the main thing that I concentrate on, but I also want it to have an impact on other people. I want them to take catharsis away from the music.
That's not
and growth.
Your responsibility, nor is it your right. And so I come at this this is why I'm asking this question, because I come at this from a very, very specific perspective. I think myself and the members of Oasis comedically come at this from the exact same perspective. And that perspective is the following. The buying public doesn't know shit. They don't know what they want till they're presented with something that they then go, ooh, I like that. How can somebody know about the Mona Lisa before the Mona Lisa is exhibited?
Love that.
So I share this because there's a core thematic, and I'll share in a second with you with something that I discovered that was a thinking process on this that is actually a Buddhist philosophy. But first thing I want to say is, the more you bake into your cake, your creative cake, the notions of third-party involvement, the faster you guarantee yourself that cake will not rise. I'm telling you, and I've seen this endlessly. Endlessly. And people often use the concept of, well, if I had more marketing dollars, then I would be better connected.
That's
It's
not what it is.
garbage. As a concept, it's garbage. You do not make music for others. Under any premise, under any circumstance, you make music because there is no way for you not to. There is no separation between you and the artist. You are one and the same. It's a compulsion. It's a need. It's a
part of who we are.
It's what satisfies your soul. When you integrate decision making, like, oh, I gotta make sure I hit this targeted figure, because if I don't hit this targeted figure, my music doesn't have merit. That too is a statement of self-deceit. It is not the truth.
And I think it's really valuable that you say that, because I think there's a lot of artists out in the world that wrestle with this exact thing, being authentic with themselves, writing because it's a part of who they are, not because they're trying to reach or sell as many copies as possible, or trying to reach as large an audience as possible.
Every artist goes through remarkable editing and self-editing and renewal processes. If it's a feature of fear, In other words, oh, they don't like what I do, so I better change all my stuff. It's a problem.
It becomes inauthentic as well, right?
If it's about emancipation, enlightenment, wow, something just triggered me. I just heard the brake pad of a bus, and it did it in a particular rhythm, and now I'm going to integrate that into something that I want to do. Then you're like, yeah, it's truth. This must be about your truth. Perception exists as a feature of your truth. Perspective hopefully will align with the perception of your truth, and then you will find this algorithm to which you think you need to feed what you do. This is a common misconception in music. This is a common, I believe, misunderstood belief system. I'm a business person, just as much as I'm a record producer, just as much as I'm a musician. I need to understand the frameworks of all sides of what it is that drives people to the table. There's layers to this, but Benny will be the first to tell you that, when he presents me stuff and I say, bro, that's derivative and you know it. And this is not about the truth that I know who you are, that I can feel what you are trying to say in this context. And you're trying to satisfy us that, fuck the rest of the world.
Yeah.
This is not about, you cannot integrate them into your creation process.
Yeah.
You are going to experience what you experience in life. There's no denying that. You're going to be educated. You're going to be defined. You're going to be undefined. You're going to be all these things. You're going to change. You're going to evolve. Trust that is enough. Because there's a lot of power to be had on the other side of the equation who manipulate that trust out of your hands. And that's what you must be very cautious about. The Buddhist philosophy that I was speaking to earlier is this notion of the difference between have, do, be, and be, do, have.
It's reversing the parameter, right?
Have, do, be is what most failures look like. If I had more time, I would do all the things I need to do, and then I'd be the thing I think I want to be.
And this is the way most
Bullshit.
people think. Yeah, this is the way most people think. Yeah.
Bullshit. It does not work. It is a recipe. I'm telling you, it's a recipe for failure. And quick failure. An optic of potentiality, but a recipe for failure. The real way to do things is be, do, have. What does that mean? Be. You want to be an artist. You are an artist. You feel it. Be that artist. What does that mean? You must explore what the notion of being an artist means. You must struggle with the truths. You must learn. You must acquire. You must grow. You must interact. Be it. Don't fear it. Don't transactionalize it to be something you think it should be. Just be the it of it. Then you've got to do all the work associated with that. You got to understand yourself. That's a huge part of being an artist.
Yeah.
Do you want people to hear what you think you want them to hear? Or do you have to do the work to find the right words to just tell them the truth as you see it? You've got to learn the road of what it is to be an artist. You've got to learn to get on stage and perform. And with all the ups and downs and quirks and insanities and so on, I think recently I did a bizarre calculation. I think I've done about 8,000 shows in my life, something like in that neighborhood. And I tell people, in those 8,000 shows, I think maybe sonically, sound-wise on the stage, maybe 50 of those were godlike. They were amazing. Everything was exactly how I hoped. Every other one of my shows, there was some form of imperfection or problem or this or that had to be handled or dealt with, right? But you got to do those things.
Yeah.
You got to go to museums. You got to speak to people. You got to write and write and write. And you are your own best critic. And you just got to keep at it. And you might have your parents say, "Oh, I really like that song." And you're like, "Why?" And they'll say, "Because it's the son I know." And then you're like, "Oh, but I don't want to be that guy. I want to be this other guy." And you're like, "No."
Yeah.
They're telling you something honorable, important at that moment.
Yeah.
If you do all those things, and then, so you are the thing. You are the artist.
I found that really inspiring just then as you were talking. I could feel like I was getting goosebumps, and I was like, I'm really connecting with this exact message.
Listen, this is one of the things I share with as many people as I can. You are the artist. You're not pretending to be. You're not transactioning it. It's not derivative. It is. Then you do the work. All the things that you know you need to do, because as an artist, you understand what it means to be an artist, because you are being an artist. If you do all that, you be and you do all that, guess what happens in the end? You have everything you want, and it just materializes. The reason it materializes is because you've organized this properly. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean you're not going to get into fights, and it doesn't mean you're not going to have issues with your label, and it doesn't mean that the touring agency isn't trying to piggyback their own, subscription-based garbages off of your efforts to value add to their brand. No, it doesn't mean any of that.
Yeah.
But when you're there, you're there for real.
Yeah.
And what you have to hold on to when you're there in those complicated realities, you have to have something that's real to hold on to. And you being an artist for real, you doing the stuff for real, that's what you hold on to. Because everybody else is now starting to try to take a bite out of you for their own transactional purposes.
Yeah.
So if you don't start this right, and I'm telling you, I've seen this so many times, you are inviting disaster to levels you cannot imagine for your own well-being. And by extension, all the people around you who care about you, who want you in their lives, and who see the value of what you're bringing to the world. Like it's just the truth. It's just,
What I really like about that is that it gives the artists the power. A lot of artists struggle, I know, with imposter syndrome and saying, hey, you need to be the artist first. It's like you need to have that belief in yourself first.
Yes.
I think like Robert Downey Jr. says, it's like if you're not in your own corner, who is, right?
Yeah.
And so taking that agency for artists is a very powerful thing, and I think I love that message in general. Yeah.
I'm glad you gave me an opportunity to share it, because it's possibly the most important thing, especially when you're seeding the totality of what you envision for yourself. You must be the thing that you know you must be. There's nothing that is going to start this more aptly or powerfully than that. And everything you do that is derivative of that and does not contribute to that is shitting on your goal.
Yeah.
Pretty straight. I mean, just that simple.
Yeah. I see it. And a question for Ben. With that in mind, in your creative process, how do you manage to stay authentic to yourself and like Ron was saying, like not write with the audience in mind specifically, but with what's true to you? Do you have a process that you?
I've actually started a new process for songwriting. So traditionally, I came from like a electronic kind of dance music area,
nice.
which Ron was a huge fan of.
Is it like EDM type?
Yeah. So a lot more like the heavier kind of like bass
Okay,
music.
so less melodic. So there's a certain EDM like Swedish House Mafia or Avicii that is very melodic that I know people connect to.
I have a term for this. I call it uns uns.
Oh well, that defines
uns.
it.
So I started with that probably 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Which I had nothing to do with songwriting. I had like honestly no real interest in writing lyrics at that point.
Was that because it's on a DAW, having that kind of patterned beat? Is it easier to put together? It's a good place to start from. Is that
Everything was programmed at that point.
Yeah.
So it was that was kind of all I really dealt with at that point. But over the years, I've kind of fallen really, really into love with like actually writing lyrics. So in the last probably 18 months, I've started like writing lyrics before I even make the song,
Awesome.
which has been a very interesting kind of way to do it for me.
Yeah.
So I honestly use it a bit like therapy. So
Yeah.
I might have things going on in my life and I'll write about it, and that's my way of kind of getting it out of my head and onto pen and paper, and then it's kind of like the fun period of trying to make something to work around that.
So the reason I'm here and working with Ben, so you're clear, is that I'm not an uns guy. Okay, I don't come from that world. I see a lot of it as derivative, and I also know from the business side of the equation that a fair chunk of that world is built essentially on licensing collections as a feature of value in the content, as opposed to what in fact I believe music is, which is the music. So having been let's say aware of those worlds, and having done a fair number of remix packages and so on for different artists in different contexts to try and expand some of the market basis for them, I'm not that guy. I'm not the uns guy. But what Ben brings to the table that's different than other people that I would define in that particular world is, in some way, I think of Ben as kind of Calvin Harris version 2.
Let's go.
And Calvin, for
High
me,
praise.
it is, but let me explain to you why. Because Calvin Harris, for me, from my standards, from the way that I look at that world, is an artist. The number of features, the number of people that he's brought in for all the things that he's done over the years is immeasurable. But what I really appreciate the most with his work is that it is utterly not like anybody else's. He has what I would call the organic mojo driven through inorganic means. And for me, that carries a lot of weight. That means that his listening history, that his approach, that is thematic, in a sense, almost like Fred sometimes, twiddles around and has these kind of characterials and this, that. That's where I see truthiness. And that's also where I see the most connective, long-standing, highest numbers of engagement, of perspective of others saying, this reality has value. It's the same thing with the evolution and what's happening now in immersive technologies and sound, that we're now beyond just the uns of putting everything into 360 immersive. Now we're talking about organics. How do we frame our engagement to the organic world? Because technically we're always walking around immersively. Our heads are X amount of feet above the ground, which means we're hearing sounds from below us, from around us, behind us, in front of us, all our sides. That's being in a globe. You're encircled.
Yeah.
When I listen to Calvin's approach to music and music making, my brain goes, wow, this person's listening history and the ethic from which they draw their decisions, entirely different. And Fred, who is Fred's neighbor in London? Brian Eno. And where did Fred go and hang out constantly in the creation of art and music and thematic? Brian's place.
Well, there we go.
Okay, so there's a logic to it, right?
Yeah.
It's the pedigree. It's the openness. It's the not I gotta be like this. It's like, Let's find something new.
Yeah.
Let's be true to, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
You just gotta do it.
Yeah.
So he's just gotta doing it, and so that's. I mean, he first reached out to me because of stuff I did on Geta. We worked together on some stuff, and then I said, "Listen, you know, the more I listen to your stuff, you got something here that is entirely outside it's kind of like beyond the pale of anybody what other people are doing.
Yeah.
This needs to be evolved. This needs to be worked on and presented and driven." And so that's what we've been doing. You know, the last 3. It's literally because of exactly what he just described.
That's
to you.
fascinating. It was also interesting that Calvin Harris was originally known for some more of the EDM type stuff, but then I know one of the songs that I came across that really changed my perspective on his music was with Gavin DeGraw. He did a beautiful piano piece, but I just realized that he's so much more than an EDM producer, and I think that's high praise, you know,
Incredible.
for Ben. So yeah, so we're really looking forward to hearing your stuff. When are you thinking about? Are you not thinking about the release plan just yet and dates and stuff like that?
It's kind of in the works, finishing to build the release plan, really.
Yeah.
So I think probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months, hopefully.
Yeah,
That's the plan.
Yeah, and I guess you don't want to put that time constraint on the creative process,
No,
right? 'Cause
no,
I
definitely
see
not.
Ron's looking at me like, don't you make him think about the deadlines.
Let's go!
And we've had a lot of conversations about when things are coming.
Well,
So,
I'm also helping Ben with the business frameworks associated, the
branding,
kind of the strategies, the kind of the everything that goes into doing this properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have obviously, you know, a lot of avenues and a lot of people and things that are going to help augment and drive this forward. But I think above all else, and as I say this, that's secondary. The primary is the content.
Yeah.
If the content lives and the content has its truth, all the other things exist to facilitate and just assist in the process. But if the content isn't there, it doesn't matter what other. I mean, great. Okay, so everything's going to be what, Baby Shark? And
I mean, it got like 6 billion streams.
Yeah, something like that.
okay, but you know, by the way, Baby Shark, if I'm not mistaken, is a Korean children's music production environment that took, this is something people don't know, took an old traditional song, Korean song from, I believe, the 30s or the 40s,
Right.
and repurposed it and drafted it into this thing that the world has seen.
That's remarkable.
Okay, so again, you know, you look at what, there were no DAWs back in the 30s and the 40s. There was just fring, fringa, fring. You have to be honest with what it is and the art that actually connects with people. And
So it
as,
sounds
as,
to me
as
like
I tried to also, sorry, last thing, just something I keep telling Ben, I say, as much as we think is the case, nobody goes to a dance club to see what the hottest new music is.
No.
Yeah.
Nobody goes there. It's not what they do. It's not the purpose of that environment. So if we accept that, because that's the truth, then you have to understand that the context of where you present your music and what the music actually is to begin with is what's going to engage people.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Not the other way around.
Right. And so it sounds to me like you're playing a full mentorship role instead of just being a producer for Ben. Sounds like.
Would you like to speak to that, Ben?
It's actually great. We meet, once a week and catch up just over video call and work on music and other kind of business things, which is always a lovely catch up we do.
And are there ever any times where you'd come with a song and Ron might say, "Oh, this is amazing! Like, let's get it down right now." Or are there any times when Ron's like, "We got to redo this whole thing"?
Well, there's been probably, I reckon the last 3 years, probably at least 150 that just got sent straight off to a pile of never being touched again.
Right, yeah. 150 songs.
Probably about that, yeah.
Oh, good on you for writing that many songs.
And I reckon there's probably been maybe 30 odd that we've actually been like, yeah, this is good, let's move it on.
So
to.
I have a rating system.
Oh, we'd love to
a
get
very
it.
aggressive rating system, shall we say?
That's a good way of putting
that,
it.
That talks about what I'm going to call the core ethic or the general underlying composition of the song, and then the framework within which it's presented. And so I rate each of those components independently. And there are times where I unfortunately send Ben crying into a corner, and there's other times where and I say very honestly, said this is superlative. This is absolutely what it needs to be. We have to do some tweaking here. We have to do some, pollination there. We need to find the right vocal feature to drive it in the right way. But this is a gem, right? And one of those, by my accounting, we talked about this, and this we knew that going in. It's one of the songs we're doing right now. Is darn tootin'.
Nice. Oh, we can't wait to hear it.
It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of music. Sung on in a wonderful way. It's got the energy. It's got the sprite, and it's got the kind of the tempo that it requires being at.
Yeah.
And the vibe and the messagery, and so that's an example of a song where the was written by Ben. I came in and I started to massage and manipulate things and do a bunch of stuff, and we added a whole bunch of instrumental components and this and that, and we had a wonderful Kiwi vocal on this by a guy named Iri Omatangi. And Erie's an absolutely fantastic vocalist. I met him through a very close friend of mine, a guitarist in town named Dixon Nacy, who is pretty well known in this country. I think every Christmas in the Park and so on, he's the leader of, and the lead artistic director, and
he's just an incredible all-round fellow, Dix.
Exceptional guitarist. I told Dixon, I said, listen, man. If you lived in New York, you'd be one of my, first call guys for most things. You that excellent.
Yeah.
And we are just, delighted that this is like moving forward with this song. It's really, really awesome.
Great.
It just feels the way it needs to feel.
And I guess we should give Ben some props for having the flexibility to, when you get your yes on a song, you celebrate, but when you get like a no, you're like, okay, go back to the drawing board.
Exactly.
And it takes some emotional flex to be able to do that, right? Because you put yourself into a song and then it gets struck down. But I often think about something that Michael Jackson said, which is that he was saying artists could do well to learn to get out of the way of their song and get out of their own way in the songwriting process, right? And I guess that's a valuable lesson that we all have to learn. Right?
Definitely.
It is.
I knew you were.
So Ben is already laughing about this comment because I am well known internationally for basically dropping the sentence I'm about to drop on pretty much every artist I ever work with.
I feel like we need a drum roll for this one.
I mean, really, if you want to know what my primary job is as a record producer, like truthfully, it's essential to get artists the fuck out of their own way. And when you're a creator with a beautiful perception and you have these contours and colors and things that you're presenting and you're showing to the world, at some point in that process, very often creeps in voices, doubts, questions. Sometimes it's even the voice of somebody who you trust, and that's what you cannot allow to happen. So that overthinking, that editing is one thing. Constant re-editing or beating of a horse or trying to think, okay, I need to do more. There has to be more of this. There has to be more. That oftentimes does not yield results. And acceptance yields results. And so part of the statement that I said is about showing, because studio is a beautiful thing, right? To be perfectly honest, you have a Digio 2 system at home, you're never going to have the same experience and emotional connectivity than you do sitting in front of a bunch of wind blown at your face with huge speakers and the glory of sound and in a really beautiful environment that exists uniformly for that sound, where you could actually hear everything truly properly. That's when you can make the best decisions. And sometimes fear creeps in. And like I said, that's why fear is one of the things that can most quickly be converted actually into something constructive, because it can be shown and demonstrated immediately that this is just a fear response. This is a concern. Sometimes it's just a transactional concern that has nothing to do with the context. That's my biggest responsibility, is to get artists the fuck out of their own way and just let their truth sing. And it's hard. And you know, we all have reasons that stop us from thinking something is finished or something is done or something is okay. Right? That's the challenge. So
I would imagine that involves a fair bit of emotional balancing and like handling of artists' feelings as well in that process, huh?
A big part of production, for sure, is psychology, is creating environments that are conducive to advancement rather than retraction. And if you come, and this is why I say the trauma redefinitions and the repurposing for constructive, that takes much longer. And in some regards, I've come to understand that if you have a recording studio that is seen as a safe space, a kind of a true space where whether you're saying something nice or you're saying something not nice, whether you as an artist are discussing trees or discussing a burning tree, you can feel defended in doing so, because those around you are not looking to divest you of the power of that statement. They're looking to enhance it. And so you feel safe, you feel empowered, and bit by bit that changes the contours of, you know, how you see what it is that you're doing, how you connect to those experiences, how you ultimately, you know, view yourself in the context of I'm an artist, right? Like that's sometimes the walk that has to happen. And I, so in the studio, I mean, literally everything's just amplified. Your emotions, what you hear, what works, what doesn't work, what needs changing, what's absolutely perfect. You know, those moments of, so, you know, when I experienced that, one of the first things we've talked about, right, is when I experienced that great drummer in a studio, the exact same thing happens. So when somebody does a superlative take on whatever instrument, people aren't in the studio saying, oh yeah, man, that's a great take. No, what they're doing is this. And everybody knows. You don't need to discuss it. You don't need to second guess. You just know.
It goes straight in the main channel.
Right? And that's the point.
Yeah.
That you can't, when you're alone in your headphones, you're not in a phalanx. You're in an environment that is a kind of a peculiar construct. You're hoping is safe, but you're in your own world.
Yeah.
that's the difference between the moment of perception and understanding that to actually, as you said when you were talking about yourself, I want people to feel this. I want people to connect to this. That's when the perspective starts to climb into the decision making.
Yeah.
And where you try to aggrandize, and you try to make, okay, now I understand what it is that people are going to hear, what they're going to care about, how they're going to respond to this. Now I get it.
You spoke earlier about Buddhist philosophy, something that I find really interesting because I lived in Sri Lanka for a few years in my life.
Wow.
And during that time, I was doing some NGO work with Buddhist monks.
Oh.
And just hearing you speak about the be, do, have paradigm reminded me a lot of conversations that I had when I was there.
Oh, yeah.
So you got a musical monk thing going on at the moment. But
I'd love to hear. Do you remember one of the most relevant conversations you had with a monk around that kind of theme? I'd love to hear.
I think that time shaped me greatly in terms of I remember having a spontaneous meditation session where I just suddenly it clicked in my brain that I was going to do music for the rest of my life. Where it was like a moment of like, aha, I knew this, but now I'm confirming it.
Yeah.
You know. And I think it was a result of spending time with monks, but also reading certain books and finding that clarity inside that then allowed me to make those decisions. But specifically to answer your question, in the time that I was there was a monk called Metta Vihari who he showed me his room. He had a mattress on the floor and a bowl, and was one of the happiest people I've ever met. And it was fantastic. So I got to spend, a few weeks by his side and just have conversations about whatever, really,
Yeah.
Which was a huge privilege for me. But while we didn't speak about music making specifically, I think a lot of the lessons in philosophy directly translated into, the work that I do and the way that I write and the way that I play music. So to put it back to both of you, how do you think that your philosophy shaped the process of making music? Or is there something in your philosophy that you feel helped to become the best version of yourself or the most creative version of yourself? If you wanted to.
I had no choice. So all my philosophical sharings with you and so on are a feature of basically being in a boat in the ocean and I got to get somewhere. Okay, I said, and I'm like, I can deny myself the thematic of seeing myself in this boat in the ocean, or I'm in a boat in the ocean. And then if you accept that, you're like, okay, what am I going to do? How do I make this boat my pathway so that I don't starve out here? Okay, do I take a little sliver and go fishing for some a fish so I can eat? Do I what's the case? So I knew. You don't want to know? You want to know when I knew I was a musician? I knew, it's a hilarious story.
I'd love to hear it.
I went underwear shopping with my mother.
How old were you?
I was 8 years old. And in underwear shopping with my mother, we went into, in Canada, we went into a department store there called The Bay, which is a historically the Hudson's Bay, which just recently shut down after being around on this planet for 500 years. But at the time, there was a music section. It was really none of these department stores have anymore.
Yeah.
So we walked in. Message in a Bottle was playing by the Police. And they're like, yes! I just got pulled right into the music section. And I'm like, what is that? You want to talk about music that's rather complex, but at the same time very energetic and bristly and wonderful from a drumming standpoint, of course, and so on. And right there, I'm like, I'm screwed. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of. That's it. It's done.
That's powerful.
It's like it's a decision just made for me.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
It was, hey, welcome to the truth of you.
Yeah.
And here it is.
Yeah.
Go forward, young lad. And so right after that, I started taking drum lessons, and on and on and on, and all the other stuff. But so when you ask a question like that, I didn't have a choice. There's no choice in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't have a. Do I do this or do I become a dentist? There's no choice.
Yeah.
You are what you are.
It's who you are, right? Yeah.
100%.
Who you are. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Did you, Ben, have a moment where it clicked for you, where it was like, or was it more gradual?
It was definitely a moment for me. I would have been in probably year 7.
Yeah.
And we had a music class at school. And I had an assignment that we had to do where we used a program called Mixcraft. Now, I haven't seen that.
It was like early DAW?
It was like pretty much identical, but I have not seen Mixcraft around probably since year 7, year 8. But I had an assignment where it was you have to like make a song with 4 notes.
Oh, okay.
I got really bored and I was like, ooh, what's this? And I started experimenting.
Yeah.
Made a song with like a lot more than 4 notes. Not one thing was in key, but it was so fun and enjoyable. Went to school very proudly the next day, and teacher's like, ooh, that's more than 4 notes. I'm like, And it got played out to the entire class, which was rather embarrassing now in hindsight. But that moment for me was probably like the first point that I truly fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And then many years later, I kind of used it to obviously write things about how I was feeling, and then it took on a different kind of love. But yeah, I couldn't do life without it. It's not really something that I could even make a choice and be like, no, it's just, it is.
Isn't it interesting how I think musicians almost across the board have this extreme passion where it's like they know that this is who they are. They know that this is what they're always going to do. I think Ed Sheeran even says it is that never be anything but a singer-songwriter. Like that's in one of his early albums, he has that line. And I just find that so, it takes a type of person, or it seems to be a trend that there's a type of person who gravitates towards being creative and towards making music. And I guess it ties into that philosophy of like, the journey of the self, the discovery of the self.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think, journey of self's a very good way of putting it with music, because you learn something new about yourself as you kind of go on by and do different things.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think music has revealed parts of myself to me as well in the journey, moving to New Zealand in 2011 to study music, because I wasn't sure where the starting point was, because a lot of musicians don't know where the starting point is. Like how do you approach it? How do you get into it? And I'm sure you have lots to say about this. But for me, that was my starting point of, I had done stage plays and stuff before in Switzerland and Sri Lanka. And then, coming here, it built gradually over time. And the more I found myself shifting into what you described as the be, do, have paradigm, the more I started to feel like, oh, okay, I get it now. I can be an artist, and then other people are wanting to hear the work as well. But it's not because I'm trying to make the work for them. It's because I'm being authentic to myself,
Well, you are about to enter an incredibly potent and powerful time in your life that I don't have children, that I'm aware of. But you have a 1-year-old.
That's right.
And I say this to you because every single muso that I know on this entire planet said to me over all the years, never have you wanted ever to work so hard for the things you cared so much about as when you have your child in front of you all of a sudden. So they said for them, their world changed the moment they had their kid.
Yeah.
And they're like, you do anything and you find and you resonate with that passion and you just drive it like you've never driven it before. And they said every single one of them without fail said that was a significant point of change in their life.
That's really resonated with me. I think it hits you like a truck, when this this kind of experience happens. Everyone talks about how having kids is one of the greatest things ever, and the moment that Zay came along, I know that my things that inspired me, like it was like a universe exploding and coming to life, in terms of where the sources of inspirations are coming from, and also the drive to want to make something great also for him. which actually my new song that I'm currently working on, that's in development with in collaboration with an orchestra, shooting at Auckland Museum next month. That song was written for him, and I was in the parking lot. We were waiting for my wife's water to break, and so I was just having to sit there because at nighttime men were not allowed in the ward, and so it was 4 a.m. I was like, I can't sleep. Like, I'm too amped up. What am I gonna do? Just, start writing, right? And so I wrote a song in about half an hour. It was just like a stream of consciousness,
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to put this out into the world for him, and it's a song about how
Even before he's born,
yeah.
you're already impassioned by the truth and the needs that are framed because of his kind of impending existence. That's a powerful statement.
It's incredibly powerful.
And I was it was really pleasantly surprising to see how the words that I wrote before I knew who he was, now a year later, having seen some of his character development and who he is under the surface, this loving, fun kid, those words are connecting even more and also resonate more with myself.
Brilliant.
So it's interesting how I wrote it before I knew him, but now it speaks for itself, So I can't wait to have it out. I'm going to try and release it in November, and then he'll have it for the rest of his life, and he'll know it's a song for him that his dad wrote with an orchestra, and to put out into the world to demonstrate the love for him. That's like my goal with it.
What point do you reckon you'll tell him that this is for you?
I mean, I think as early as he can understand what it means, and I think like you said earlier, like we're always looking back at things from who we are, right? So I hope, will look back at it from who he is when he's 5, 10, and then 20, and then 50, and every stage of his life it'll mean something different and something new. So I'm trying to make something that ties the thread, like you said, time is fluid, ties that thread of time, and allows him to feel the love, feel how loved he is, feel that his place in the world is solid, and his purpose is like for him to decide, but he'll have all the support that he ever needs. I want him to feel all those things in every part of his life, also when I'm gone as well. And I think that has driven me for the last year. Everything takes longer when you have a baby. So I was like, I'm going to release this when he's 3 months old. I'm going to release it when he's 6 months old. And here we are a year later. But I'm finally going to release it in 2 months. So
How exciting.
Yeah. So thanks for asking.
I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah.
I look forward to sharing with you guys. But yeah, so tying back to sources of inspiration, do you, Ron, with the work that you've done, is there any particular event in your life that had an inspiration or contributed to a song that you released or a piece of music that you played or produced? Is there something standout that you could think of?
So I would say every single piece of music that I'm involved in for sure has a piece of me in one way, shape, or form. And that piece of me sometimes is more literal, sometimes it's more abstract, sometimes it's a direct reflection of something. Sometimes it can be just an instinctual response to what it is that's going on based on something that happened to me. And I'm like, okay, this is where this is going to go, and I'm going to fit it in.
Yeah.
But if you ask me as an aggregate, I would have to share with you the following story. Because this story kind of, I think, explains maybe the best my motivations in pretty much anything I do. And that itself is kind of across the board. So I have a certain family history, and my family history is dotted with some amazing, incredible things that have happened, and also some absolutely horrendous, terrible things that have happened. And part of that history involves my grandfather, who was taken from France and murdered in a concentration camp. And so I never had the benefit of having a relationship with him. And I often thought about him because I had another grandfather with whom I did have a very wonderful relationship, and how I missed out, because of this. And then I started to think about some of the probably genetic markers that are in me that make me do certain things under certain circumstances, including being musical. One of which my grandfather was a virtuoso violinist.
Wow.
He used to play in the caveaux in Paris, which are underground wine cellars that have been transformed into performance venues, and it's very, very common in Paris, in some of the central district in the city. And so at the time there were larger big bands that played, and dance bands and this, and then some well-known artists of the day and so on. So he that was one of his gigs. He also had an aviation business at the same time, and he loved horses and all these things I had no idea about until I was 18. And my mother said, "Hey, guess what? You are a spitting image of your grandfather."
Wow.
Because the things I had a girlfriend who rode horses, and I would go to competitions with her, learned how much I loved horses. I went to university, and my university degree, ladies and gentlemen, my university degree is in commerce with a specialization in transportation and logistics and a minor in political economy.
Wow.
That is why, again, it's a transportation specific. He had an aviation business. Right, so again, you're like,
That seems like it's not a coincidence right there, yeah.
Like you start to look at these things, and, like, how is this possible? So the music, the studies, the horses, and then I started to think, and this is something I've spoken to Ben a lot about the decisions behind which decisions you've made, which leads by default to the decisions you make. And I would think oftentimes about my grandfather and say, okay, so you're in the worst possible circumstance that anybody could be in. You had your money taken from you, your business is taken from you, your home taken from you, basically your clothes taken from you, your pride taken from you, your freedom taken from you, all these things.
Yeah.
Right? Like an incredible number of things. And, in our current state of affairs on this planet, this is not an uncommon thing for people to have to negotiate and think about. And so it's very timely as a concept. And I'm like, so he's there in this environment, unspeakable environment. What do you hold on to? I started to ask myself this question. What do you hold on to? And I'm like, then I flipped the question, and I started to ask myself, what can no one ever take away from you? And then I start to think about, right, okay, so my grandfather as the violinist in this, he did these performances, he did these recordings, he was involved in these environments, right? Those are things that once you've done them, nobody can ever take them away from you.
Yeah.
It's like if you train for a marathon, right? You go, you work at it, you're working, and you run your miles, and you're this, that, and then eventually you run the marathon. Once you've run that marathon, nobody can take that away from you. And those are the types of goals that in my life, that's all I ever do, that's all I ever commit to. Are the things that nobody can take away from me of that nature.
Yeah.
And one of those things is music. Because when you craft something and it becomes, the spice in a way in people's ears, because we know music floats through the air, nobody can take that away from me. And I think it's one of the reasons why I gravitated also to the world of music, not just because I'm an artist, but because as a thing in society, it is utterly noble. It is utterly value added and meaningful, and it is built, the intellectual property, the existence of, is built on the premise of that you can never have it taken away from you. It is a forever thing. And so you ask me, how it is, why it is, when it is, all of these factors, why am I in the middle of this? Why do I care about this so much? I think in some regards for me, it's an honoring of my grandfather.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Like, I really do believe that that's why I am doing, and why I'm called, in a sense, to do the things that I do.
So thank you so much for sharing that deeply meaningful and personal story. And I think it's so important in this day and age for people to know that history as well, because I believe that if people were aware of the history of everything, then the world would be a better place. But it's sometimes when people are not, history can repeat itself, right? And so, yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, of course, you know, he would be very proud. And I think that your why, you have a really strong why. And as an artist, to have a really strong why, it's going to get you through the crap, right? It's going to get you through the dirt when the chips are down.
And there's a lot of crap.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap.
Shoveling through it.
Yeah.
Just throw it over your shoulder. But yeah, having a powerful why is so meaningful, you know? I want to ask Ben, like, what is your why? Do you have a moment in your life that has defined perhaps any of your songs or you as an artist, you know?
I think there's always like multiple kind of things that kind of compound and all kind of create your why. But I always had a very supportive, actually, it's grandparents. My grandmother always drove me to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it's probably one of the only family members that was always like, follow what you want to follow.
What are some of the ways that she directly encouraged you?
I think I released my first song a year outside of high school, so it was 2018.
Yeah.
And it was this, in hindsight, like, this terrible like dance song. I listened to it a couple
Everyone's
weeks ago.
got a first song.
Exactly.
Out there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think actually, if I listen to it still, it might even have samples that were never cleared. But, you know. But she told me she forced my uncle and my auntie to listen to it because they never heard it. And so they're all sitting around having dinner one night. She's gone and pulled out her iPad and gone, have you listened to it? And she forced them to sit through 3.5 minutes of a bass house song to multiple people, you know, two of them
She's
in their
a real
50s.
one, man.
Yeah,
She's a real
exactly.
one.
I think she was in her 80s at that point.
Yeah,
It was
that's beautiful.
just, someone always backing me to go and do what I wanted to do.
Isn't it interesting how sometimes just one person who was all the way for you is enough, even if there's 100 that are not, that are against you, right? I think that speaks to who we are inside as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think my why was defined for me the year that I moved to New Zealand in 2011. I was here for 6 months studying music at the uni, and then my mom got into an accident and she passed away within like a month.
Wow.
And that was one of the hardest things that my family and I ever went through, but also because she was also our support structure financially and stuff. So I was like in New Zealand, I didn't know anyone. And it just like hits you, you know? But you take that stuff and you make something with it. You use it as fuel, right? And so for me, that why really cemented itself. I was like, now I have to do it. Now I have to do it as well as I can, you know? And so I ended up, my second single that I released, Flares, so I think in 2022, I wrote a song for her. And I had written it just after she passed away. And like you said, it was just on a guitar. I didn't have any skills to record myself or anything at the time. I had my guitar and my voice. And for 10 years, I would play it to myself and try and iterate and improve on it. And then when I developed the skill set, I was like, okay, we're going to record this at as high quality as we can, make a proper looking music video out of it, and tell my mom's story in the music video. And so, so for anyone who's seen Flares, it's there's a scene of me on a lighthouse singing out into the ocean, and the idea of the lighthouse being, you know, that constant person, like your grandmother was your lighthouse, you know, having that imagery, and then also cutting to, I got some of my family, a little kid and a mom, to act out us when we were little, but just as silhouettes, like no, you know, specific features. So it's almost dreamlike. But I think that, having that strong why and having a person, which in my case was my mom as well, just makes a world difference. And it also inspires that genuine creativity, you know? Yeah.
I have stories of work I've done with artists precisely around this. And some of them are tough. Really tough. Many years ago, I worked with an independent artist, a guy who was both a journalist and a rapper. And again, as you know, what I'm most known for, the things that I've done, are particularly in that world. But I think he wanted somebody to work with that was, not married just to the tradition of how things were done. And then as a result, we talked. I met him in Philadelphia, and we spoke about the project and so on. It was a really wonderfully interesting project, and I decided to kind of create something structurally unique for it, where everybody was playing in real time. I was on the drums playing in real time. I had a headset, and I'd basically direct people into what it is I do in real time as we were making some of the beds and the frameworks and the tracks. In any case, we're moving through the songs. I'm using the way that I would direct people is at a light structure. So lights would go off. So a blue light would mean bass player start playing, or if it would flashing, it's like bass player solo, or the oranges were for the.
What an interesting way to run a session like that. That's
Well,
super
it's the only way to do it because I had to play at the same time, and I didn't want to make unnecessary noises or so on, or speak, and try to explain to everybody, okay, now you're going to come in and do this here and this. So it was just a coding system. Actually, my stepfather helped me tremendously with the setting up of it, and another friend, and it was something I'd heard kind of had been done informally in the downtown New York scene. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this and see what we create,
Nice,
right?
yeah.
A little bit of a Parliament funk, kind of a vibe to this ongoing. We got through the first 3 days. We got most of the tracks done, but there were several, that the artists needed to recut. And so vocally, because he was also, he had his, he had the raps in place. We understood certain things, but so we had to recut some of the vocals. So I'm like, okay. We get to a song. I'm hoping he's okay with me talking about this. It's a song called Ice Cream Melts. And it was the recounting of how his cousin, who's never been the same since, found his mother murdered by his stepfather. And how she's never been the same. And the whole song, right? You wrote an ode to your mom. This whole song is about him speaking, telling to his mom, everything's okay. That, this aunt and this person and this and that, and something saying, things happening here with the family. And it was such a heavy undertaking. And, it's such an innocuous name for a song. But it's this representation that they're not gone. They exist because you breathe life into their existence. And that, the horror of these things occurring, it's incomprehensible. But the concretization of it into a form of intellectual property that offers the truth of the feelings from the message, which then can transport and facilitate how other people feel, and how other people would have maybe themselves experienced, maybe not exactly the same situation, but something similar. But the catharsis, not only for oneself but for others, it's exceptionally powerful. And I remember him struggling with it, because it's not easy, but he was struggling with it in the sense of, I don't think he wanted to deal with it. The material was there, and he was having trouble, and I had to go in the booth, and I had to say, bro, dude, this is your mom. You're not singing at your mom. You're not rapping at your mom. You're talking to your mom, right? Just like I imagine your song was. Talk to her. Just be real with her. And show her what you're about. Show her that you're being responsible in the way that she taught you, that she cared for you and tried to instill in you, that you're showing the thoughtfulness, the caring, the continuity, that in spite of, the cousin not being able to get beyond this, this incredibly traumatic moment, that you haven't shelled, you've continued. And I remember it's one of the hardest things I ever had to do was, confront an artist about a circumstance that happened to them in a context that was, the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And say, yo, speak to your mom. Just speak to your mom. And he understood. We had a little cry. We moved forward. And the piece of music is something.
Yeah. Well, after that, I can imagine the authenticity of it and the power behind it as well, with that emotion.
It really carries the emotion, doesn't it, into it?
Yeah. Do you believe that it is necessary for an artist to suffer in order to make something truly great?
I think every human being suffers whether they invite it or wish it or not. And so I don't know, and I'm just going to say this as a generality. I don't know one human being on this planet who hasn't suffered. And so if you're asking me to, what's the ratio of suffering requirement in order to make a qualitative piece of music, I don't think I can define that, because I've heard quirky, happy songs that if you really listen close, they're not about quirky happiness. They're actually about the opposite.
Just chuck some major chords in it, and
Yeah,
it's okay.
It's jazz hands. So in that sense, it's like, so what does that even mean? That they got to suffer. For me, everybody suffers.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through things.
It's also one of the pillars in Buddhism, isn't it? That suffering is a part of existence, right?
It just and suffering, again, it's a word, which any word in the English language is essentially a mathematical structure to try and communicate something in some relativistic way. So what is suffering, right? It's just like you could ask the opposite. What is success? How do you define success? Do you define success for an avant-garde jazz icon like Ornette Coleman in the same way as you define it for Tay-Tay?
Billboard number ones.
But you understand what I mean? It's that these are not absolutes.
Yeah.
And suffering is not an absolute. And while I do accept that one's core purpose tends to reflect a little bit the circumstance in which they have grown up and the challenges versus the non-challenges that they face, I don't know. I've never met a person who hasn't suffered, in my entire life. Just ask anybody. Ask that stewardess on the airplane, is she suffering? She's like, no, I'm having a great day, bringing all the food to everybody. It's just wonderful.
We all wear masks, right? And everyone's carrying a mask of some kind.
I love my job.
Everyone tries to hide it, but I think at every level.
And I think some people become quite good at dealing with it in a way that's productive, and then maybe not suffering as much as a result of their perspective.
I just went to Denny's yesterday. That's me admitting something I should never admit to the world. But here in Auckland, just here on Hobson, and there was a woman working there who I know for a fact, could just see by the way she was, is a child of war. She just, by the lacerations, by the body language, by the almost the servile nature of her
Yeah.
approach and so
Yeah.
on. And you look at that person and you go, she is happy. And she's very well attuned. But is that what she is? Is the suffering provided a pathway for a greater appreciation for, just the simplest thing here
Yeah.
of the job, or
Something that people could learn from, isn't it? Like, I think people who grow up in a constantly safe environment don't have the reference frame to appreciate fully what they have, right?
Their
Especially in
framing-
countries like Aotearoa, New Zealand.
like the definition, their definition of suffering is entirely different. It's like, oh, they got my order wrong at the restaurant. I'm suffering.
And some people go through their days like that every day, right?
And so I looked at her and I immediately, I was telling this to Matt. Matt was a keyboardist who was hired to come in and play for us, and I've known Matt for years. I'm involved with him in many different projects, also spatial sound and immersive projects. But he's a fantabulous creator, keyboardist, just top notch.
Wonderful human being as well.
Wonderful human being. Here, New Zealand fellow based in Palmy. And we were just sitting there and we were just talking about what is it really, what is wrong really in our lives? Like, honestly, comparatively speaking.
Yeah.
When you see, and I was pretty sure she was Eritrean, and just very, what the hell have I got to complain about?
Yeah.
Right? And while I've suffered, I'm like, let's put it in a real schematic here.
Yeah.
In context.
And and what this woman has suffered, and finds the power to achieve, is possibly the most meritorious thing
Yeah.
that I could see.
Yeah.
I have a wonderful relationship I'm in now with an artist on the west coast of Canada, and she has suffered some terrible things, and she's risen above. That kind of character, that kind of humility, and just extension of yourself to understand this is not all there is. There is something to be had that is not this. It's better.
Yeah.
It's stronger. It feeds me, and it will always feed me. It's incredible.
It's not something you can buy. It's an experience that needs to be had.
It's not. And I consider myself extremely fortunate in life.
Yeah.
And having had so many privileges and having had so many, the immediacy of the results of those privileges, and on the flip side, the counterbalance to that is that I don't give myself any grace. Right, that itself is also a complicating feature. When we understand how privileged we are, then everything is like, you don't have any excuse for something not going the way it needs to go.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go that way, it's your fault, and you must. Right, these are things. These are all storylines.
Yeah.
That feed into the content, that feed into the music, that feed into the truth of what it is that you have to say.
Yeah.
That is my truth. But am I going to share that with everybody at any time, in any way? No. Does it help me in business? Sometimes. At other times, it might stand in the way. It depends on if I'm sitting across somebody who's sociopathic in a board meeting, or I'm sitting across somebody who sees things in more humanistic light.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all this stuff that's happening in this way.
Yeah.
And it was just something that really struck me. I think it might be the thing that I carry from this particular trip forward with me, is that one woman who's a server at Denny's, who I know is Eritrean, who I know is a child of war. I know it.
Yeah.
And is just happy in existence.
Yeah.
Just because.
Happy in existence.
Yeah.
That's a lovely.
I think it's interesting how people who, are worthy of being looked up to are hiding in all of these little places that we wouldn't know otherwise. And most, kids nowadays are watching like YouTubers and they're like, oh, I want to be like this guy. I want to have 100 million subscribers. And it's back to what you said about the me culture, right? But in fact, where really it's worth putting our attention is with people like that who have gone through something and then come out the other end and decided that they are going to be grateful and that they are going to do the best with what's been gifted to them, or with what they have or don't have as well. I spent during my years in Sri Lanka. In 2008, the civil war ended in Sri Lanka, and I was there from 2001 to 2009. So I saw a lot of that suffering firsthand from people, and I also saw what extreme poverty does to people, but also the kindness that comes out of extreme poverty and how people who don't have anything are most likely to share the most.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. I remember going to someone's house who they barely had like 4 wooden walls, but because they knew we were coming, they somehow arranged for a feast, like a buffet with 10 dishes.
Wow.
And I was like, how did you do this? And it was because they knew we were coming and it meant something to them. They wanted to show their gratitude, even though they had almost nothing.
Yeah, wow.
And I just think about like the contrast of that, with seeing people who have so much and who might not appreciate it. So, yeah. But, yeah.
You mean the people whose core wealth would take the average person 726,000 years to equal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Of a working life.
Yeah.
That kind of disparity is grotesque to me. It's unnecessary, and although what I will say is it manufactures killer art because of the response to it. In fact, heinous times craft among the most memorable, most deep, and most continuous art in the history of man.
Really?
And so you talk about suffering. What I would say to you is that suffering as a thing, everybody has experienced in a different way. Suffering as the climate under which an entire group of humans together collectively operate, that is different. That at times, because there's, even in business thinking, there's those who have, and then the counterculture who starts to be, well, we look at things differently, and so you come to us for those different opinions and those viewpoints.
Yeah.
And, we make different things, we sell different things.
It was the 60s, right?
And so I look at our current world. I look at the heinousness of so many things going on. I look at the interconnectivity of everybody everywhere in a general sense, and mostly in Western Civ, along with some other frameworks, if you call Pan-Asia here, this and so on, because they're, the idea that the internet is beyond dial-up in some nations in Africa, that's a fallacy. There's a lot of places on this world that are very, very, they're not privileged to have the access to information and the way of communicating.
Something that
and
we
so
take
on.
for granted, yeah.
And file sharing for us, just a simple, through DAWs and ICQ structures and all that. No, they don't have access to any of that. So I look at this world and I go, out of this, because I don't understand a very big part of some of the things that exist in this world. Right? I don't understand motivations. I don't understand how optics have become truths and how truths have become optics. I don't.
The era of fact checking is not present.
It doesn't compute.
No.
It doesn't compute for me. But what I know is going to happen and I'm already seeing it, is this bubbling up of what I call the nuh-uhs. And the nuh-uhs is that community. It's like, nuh-uh. No effing way. I got some shit to say about this. I'm going to create frameworks and parables and stories and music and plays and sculpture that reflects this garbage. And I am very appreciative in that bizarre way for this time, because we got into a point for 25, 30 years that was pretty tepid, pretty
Things were quiet.
predictable. And by extension, you can see the offshoots of, stylistic creations that are just repeat frameworks, that are just more of the same, that are, okay, well, like I said, I'll get my Digio 2 system, I'll use my soft synth pack, like everybody uses the exact same one, and I'm just going to create something because it makes me feel like I'm part of this thing. That's not artistry. That's just manufacturing. We have been in a process of manufacturing, and we needed some kind of horror shake to get us out of that perspective and to move us into something that is more tangible, more human, and less predictable. And I think that's where we are now accessing. The internet, AI, the availability of certain resources to everybody, I think is absolutely fantastic. So long as one of the very first things we talked about is maintained in that structure. And that is, you must defend your own true voice. Your voice cannot be a reflection of what AI says it should be. You must be a creator. So first of all, AI is many things. AI is not one thing. That's a major mistake that most human beings make. I mean, I'm part of certain AI creative communities on the planet, and there's pockets, and there's great ones in France and on the west coast of Canada, and and these are creators. These are people who are like, I am going to create that which I believe is going to advance our planet. Comedically, I've been discussing with somebody who's a real guru in the field, that they're like, Ron, I want to make an AI of you. And I'm like, you must be crazy. I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth in the next 3 seconds. And you, he's like, listen. And this is the difference between those who use and those who create. And it's a thematic that applies across the generations and applies across industries, is that this fellow says to me, Ron, I want the things that you care about and that are meaningful to you in art, in music, I want them to impact 5,000 people at a time in a framework that is unique and individual to each one of them, as opposed to 5 people at a time in a context like this when we're talking.
So having you as an AI would serve that purpose, huh?
In his perspective and through the framework that he believes he can draft, and this is a build. This is not a. He's quite certain that he can create a honoring AI to the way that I perceive the world, to the opinions and the perspectives that I would bring to an independent artist's music, to an independent artist's questions as to what should they do next, how should they operate, where should they go, how should they build, what should they focus on. He's very convinced that can be made to happen.
Well, that let you be in multiple places at the same time then, huh? Which is, I guess, one of the challenges and limitations that you face traveling all over the world.
Right. Well, look, I mean, if Geta can be a hologram on a beach, in Spain at the same time as being doing a show, in Paris, but
Why not?
Why not?
Why not, right?
Why
That's
not?
Yeah, leverage the tools, right? Leverage the tools.
It's a lot of machine learning.
Yeah. I was wanting to ask, in relation to AI, as a songwriter, what is your perspective on how AI both helps musicians and songwriters and then also stands in the way of, do you spend any time thinking about it, staying up at night, or like, do you worry like, oh man, like AI is going to write all the songs in the future? Like,
I don't think it's ever going to replace human beings because AI is obviously modeled off catalogs from other people. So a song and what's actually written by a person is so distinctly them. It's not like an AI can go and write off based off of you.
Yeah.
So I think as creators and musicians, I think we're safe enough at the moment. That
I like that certainty that you carry as well, because it comes from a place of like, art and humanity are inseparable. And then AI has, like, there's applications for it, but it is not the be-all, end-all that everyone's worried that it's going to just take over everything.
There's certain parts, obviously, in a music career, I think AI could be very useful for like captions and whatnot, and maybe content ideas for social media.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually making the art,
Yeah.
that's a deeply personal thing.
Yeah.
That's why people look up at artists, because they want their perspective.
And then they want to see a human being playing something human and meaningful on a stage.
Exactly.
I think it's in some ways even more simple. I agree with everything you're saying, but I think it's actually in some ways even more simple. AI foundationally is intelligence. AI is not conscious. And when you talk about the human experience, right, there is no algorithm for love. There is no algorithm for courage. There's no algorithm that can be created for fear. But these are all significant contributors to human decision making in anything they do on the daily, let alone in the creative field.
Yeah.
So the thing that because I've spoken with a lot of people about this, because I find this stuff fascinating, right? At the same time, when digital audio workstations started coming up with, for people in their home computers, everybody in the music industry was like, okay, that's the end of us.
Right.
Right? And clearly it wasn't.
No.
It's how do you apply and benefit from the tool rather than assure in your own mind that the tool is going to replace you. And it never did, and it never does. Humans exist at the point of where the dynamic and the static meet. We make decisions that are built on, we like to think, certain predictable inputs, but it's not always the case. Suddenly, no, I don't want a matzo ball soup today, I want fried chicken. Right? What is it that drives that decision? What is it about that decision that matters? Does it matter? So I've put this in front of systems engineers, I've put this in front of many people, and why they have a great confidence as builders that these systems are cannot replace is because they are founded essentially on static data. And that means that as the world continues to add more and more data and more information and so on,
Regurgitates it, right?
you just get a more refined reflection of that which has been, not that which can be. And for us as creators, if you separate the commercial feature from the creation feature, again, one of the things we spoke about earlier, then you come to understand that there will be environments that will draft and prioritize commerciality of the optic of something over the validity of the truth of something.
Yeah.
Right? There's a label recently that signed its first AI artist. I can't remember the name of the label or the artist. He's I am something. I can't remember the name. And that artist has AI contribute significantly to their creations, but they have a whole framework and platforms upon which they take that, repurpose it, reframe it, do all the things that they wish to then do it with post.
I know Timbaland also signed an AI artist recently to much controversy.
Yeah.
There's obviously debate going on around it. Is it good? Is it not? You know.
He's been
But isn't it
promoting.
interesting? The word is an AI artist, and I
It's a
remind
contradiction.
everybody
It's an
that
oxymoron.
it's still
It is.
Yeah.
an artist. In other words, it's an
You have a high
artist
bar
that
for
using.
how to define it, right?
So if we assume, let's say it's somewhere near my bar of acceptability, just for the purpose of our argument,
Yeah.
what's interesting is that it's not an LLM, it's not an agent, it's an individual managing those agents. If the agents were all knowing, all capable, then why would you pay money to the human in the process?
Yeah. 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 Why would you need them, right? Yeah.
Right? And so you start to ask yourself these questions. What are we managing? Right? In the past, if you had harpsichord, which was the technology of the day, you are managing physical paper with writing on it, right? Notation, and the biomechanics required of you to be able to perform that which either you wrote or was written by somebody else. But the biomechanics required of the instrument, right? That's something I know about. That's why I moved to New York, was basically to be the drummer to the stars. That was the dream. That was the
wealthy.
right. Seems to, and so that was about me organizing a biophysical truth, working, refining, coming to terms with I am this, I am not this, I prefer this, I wish this, I don't wish this, and you just do it. I think people spend an incredible amount of their lives circling around in kind of like fear buckets, whereas I would love nothing more that if they took that same time and spent it in a non-fear bucket. Just try. We talked about that today. It's how do you assign your time to normative thinking or positive thinking? Right? Is everything just about an opinion? Is everything a problem? Is everybody an asshole? Is everybody, taking your benefits away? Is it, or, what do I got to do to lead the charge?
Yeah. Yeah.
What can I offer? It's the offer. Again, it's the offer. And artists who are artists understand that. Because when an artist creates art, their only intent is the offer. The ask, i.e., the payments, the perspectives, all the other stuff, that's a byproduct. It's not the product. And so this kind of thinking is this we've gotten into a very permissive time in the world where nasty, cruddy, crappy, and I mean, I'm subjected to it just like anybody else, right? You think I like what's going on in the States? You think I like what's going on in this world? No.
Yeah.
I'm very, very vocal about this. Anytime I'm delivering a seminar or
I
doing
think we
a
need
thing,
people who are vocal about it.
like I'm vocal about it. So, I am humongously dissatisfied with so many things that exist on this planet, but those things don't stop me.
Yeah.
Because I'm reminded, and I remind people, I am part of a phalanx. It's a phalanx of artists. And artists throughout all human history are those who bring attention to righteous shit, who bring clarity, who drive authenticity, who are fearless, and by extension, oftentimes targets of suffering.
That's why they're the first to go when the far right crackdowns happen in society.
It's them, media, intelligentsia in educational environments. Of course, this is because it's obvious. If you believe in an open society, you believe that everybody has the right to say something. Even the people you hate, but you still believe that they have a right to say something.
Yeah.
So engaging in discourse is the power.
Yeah.
Disengaging and assuring no discourse is the control framework. So I'm like, I am so pissed off at this world with so many, with so many things. But I feel endlessly thankful that the group with which I most identify, that I'm most reminded, has, by and large, good intentions, and who is not servile in the way other people are, which fear then induces actions that are illogical. We live in that phalanx. So I see my job, I see my position today as advancing everything I possibly can in the mind of the phalanx and just reaffirming. Here we are. That's a truth? Talk about it. That's a truth that's really uncomfortable? Talk about it. You have DEI and diversity issues and so on? Talk about it. Just talk about it. Stop thinking about the past. Stop driving everything as some feature of a chip on your shoulder about that things haven't gone the way you hoped. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Just look forward. Take what you have a confidence in your messagery, walk it forward. You have a phalanx that's around you to help you with this.
Yeah.
That's what, unfortunately, hellish times manufacture louder than anything else.
Yeah. I like the idea that discourse is also the solution to a lot of it. I'm reminded of Joyner Lucas, the song "I'm Not Racist." It's an amazing song where you have two people from different political spectrums sitting down, and the first verses are them going at each other, but then the subsequent verses are them actually hearing what the other has said, and then it slowly becomes it morphs into an understanding of each other and a polite respect, even though they have separate points of view, which nowadays is very rare, right? That you have mutual respect for someone who has a different point of view.
How do you find enrichment if you don't sit with somebody who has a perspective on things different than yours? Isn't that what going to school is when you're like, grade 1, 2, 3? It's you don't know everything when you're like, 7 years old. So you got a person at the front of the class like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of things for you to think about.
Yeah.
What do you want to do about it?
Yeah.
You dig it? You don't dig it? It's okay. But check it out.
You don't grow as a person unless you actually sit with people with different views on things.
So one of the things I wanted to ask Ron was with all of the variety of artists, some of the big names in the industry that you've worked with. I wanted to do a bit of a quick fire round. So I'm gonna, if you could sum up in 2 sentences with the following names that I give you, what the experience was like, or something that your big takeaway from working with that artist. We'll give it a go. And if you know any, feel free to chuck it on here as well, because I'm going off the top of my head of who I know you've worked with. We'll start with we'll go Alicia Keys.
That was when I was basically an in-house drummer and producer at Tainted Blue in New York City, which used to be the top floor of Quad Studios. That was a quick in and quick out situation. That particular one, absolutely. Zoomy.
And you enjoyed it?
It was nice working with Q and with... she was in and out. It was not really one of these long emancipated environments. And I didn't really know very much about the fact that it was being used or so on, because you got to understand when you're kind of the house guy in the studio environment like that. I mean, I played on so many things and for so many people.
Yeah. And
invariably, sometimes you do 10 or 15 tracks for somebody, and then 3 would make the album, or 4, or you do a bunch of tracks for somebody, 1 would make it, and this. So I mean, it's a very prolific time in my history when in terms of playing. I just playing so much. And I was very fortunate because I'd say I'm probably at the end of that curve of when the studio muso in New York really had their shining light,
Right,
and
yeah.
I was very influenced by a lot of guys
Yeah.
that was their life, and
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I always wanted to be one of those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
So being in a studio that's at the top floor of this building on 47th Street and 7th Avenue, where you have Christmas parties and you can look right at the ball dropping into Times Square and so on from
Right
the
in the
roof,
middle of it, yeah.
because you can just sit there and watch
Yeah.
that. I mean, it was all fantastic and a wonderful time, and
Yeah.
a very big chunk of the it's now almost 500 recordings that I've been on.
Well, it's as they say, if
we're-
one in 100 songs is a hit, then play 100 songs, right?
Yeah, you know how it is. We're done there, in quite rapid fire over the years. Yeah.
All right, so that was Alicia Keys. Let's go Gwen Stefani. What was that story there?
That is a feature of my work, actually with a band called The Counts, and Moby had invited the band to be part of his recording and his repurposing of Southside. And so this is eons. Again, this is one of the, not very long after I got to New York, I got in this gig, because you basically want to be with anybody doing anything. And I got the benefit of this band. They're paying me. I was like, okay, white guy in this band, rock and roll. Well, why not? I guess I got the pocket and the groove that they need, and I'm
You're
like,
in the
okay,
pocket.
great. And sampled that stuff, and then threw it on the Southside recording, and then that also continued on to then be the second version of that, which had Gwen Stefani participating. And that's the famous one that everybody knows.
Fascinating.
So, it was, again, one of the 2 gashmillion sessions that I've done in New York City over all the years.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so when I was doing my deep dive on you,
Oh, God. Oh, no.
don't worry, it's something we can talk about on the air.
Okay.
But I came across a peculiar name that I didn't know you worked with, and that's Yoko Ono. What have you got to say about that?
Okay. There was a... so, John Lennon has a huge history in New York City, as we all know, not the least of which is being killed there. So, every so often, there are tributes that are put together to John Lennon, and because, there's Julian Lennon, who also has had quite a great musical career, they put on this whole kind of Julian and John sort of event. And it was done at the Cutting Room in New York City, the old Cutting Room. I don't think that Cutting Room exists anymore. And so there's a whole whack of us that were invited to perform. And kind of like a rotating cast of characters on stage. Some of us who had performed with these people, some of us who, I knew a whole whack of the people. Hey, you're going to come down, you're going to sit in, you're going to play, blah, blah, blah. And there's a recording of this night that had been put out as some live thing that I don't even know where it is. I think I have one niblet of it somewhere.
Not on YouTube?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do your work, internet. Find it.
So I was on stage when Yoko was doing her thing.
Cool.
And it was as one would expect.
There's not a lot of people who can say that. That's cool.
I agree. It was a really interesting experience. I cannot say that I'm the biggest fan of Yoko Ono as an artist, if I'm being perfectly honest. But at the same token, it was a really fun event with a lot of people, a lot of good energy, a lot of great musicians, and just, I don't know, must have been 500-600 people in the room kind of a thing. And I enjoyed it. But again, when you are a gun like I was in New York for years and years, doing session after session after session after session, you are on so many things, so many people, you're involved with so many projects, and it's very alive, right? And it's just, these things happen all the time, and it's quite normal, and you never know who you're going to meet, who's going to be on that stage. Sometimes you you don't know, and
That's fascinating, and it's so interesting. Imagine showing up and like you don't know, and then suddenly Yoko Ono's there, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this.
Well, I knew she was definitely going to be there
Yeah.
at the event. I also knew Julian was. I was more actually kind of motivated to see if I'd be on stage at the time that Julian was playing one of the songs or whatever, because I appreciate him as an artist tremendously. I think he's super gifted and vibe wise and characterially and so on. And but in that context, that didn't happen. I mean, I met him, we talked, but I never got to get on stage with him.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of a story that you told me last year when we met for the first time, where you had played on David Guetta's song that won the Grammy, I believe, but you didn't know until after the fact. Is that correct?
So
is that what happened?
That's not the Guetta song. That's actually Alicia's thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
The Guetta track "Dangerous" was a gig that I got through a short-lived arrangement, if you will, I had with a Hungarian woman who was my manager. At a certain period of time, I met her at Medem, and she lived on Ibiza. And David has a house on Ibiza. And it just became, she's just a very natural thing. So she started to open up a lot of doors for me, and some production doors in Hungary with Magneton, which is their kind of lead Warner-derived label that had a certain measure of independent artists, and then, some radio play things and radio kind of access points, if you will, to other potentialities for other artists that I could feed into that environment and kind of drive forward.
Right.
And then one of the things was Guetta. And so she's like...
Was this around the time that he was already taking off, or had he already had a few number ones at that point?
No, he was already in play. He was definitely somebody recognized, but I didn't actually meet him in Ibiza first. I met him in Paris. Because the manager, she was there with me. We kind of coordinated the meeting, and we started talking. He's a very nice man. And he had heard some of the stuff I'd done and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, listen, it'd be really great if you could come down. I've got, I think, these 3 tracks I'm kind of working on right now. And, I'm less of a organicist than others, and we have Slash coming in to do guitars on these things, because he wanted to push. Guitars had been made a little bit of a re-emergence.
Yeah.
And they come and they go in so heavy guitars, they come and they go in, let's call it pop.
Are they making a resurgence at the moment?
Pardon me?
They're kind of making a resurgence at the moment as well, right?
In a manner of speaking, but not quite, I think, as you're thinking. There's a movement right now called regenerative simplicity, and so they do exist, but not in the heavier ethic, except in certain specific say categories, if you will, of creatives that you find less and less kind of in radiophonics or internet radio or so on. Again, these things are they're very mobile. I always tell people, I say, if you want to know what's going to happen in the world upcoming in music, keep your eye on Belgium. That's all you need to do. Just keep your eye on Belgium. But the Guetta thing was, that I went, we started working on it. The Slash came, I helped a little bit with that. I was there for 3 days.
Cool.
And
How was the
did a
session
bunch
with
of playing, did a bunch of stuff, and that was it. It was just, wasn't particularly a complicated affair. I think more, I've had many, many more complicated situations that I probably shouldn't go in any greater detail on. But you happen to pick ones that honestly were pretty fluid, pretty easy, and that I was very, I had wonderful luck in many ways to be in the right place at the right time to allow those things to kind of flourish.
Well, of course, also, and your talent, right, that got you into those rooms in the first place.
I appreciate that, and thank you for the compliment. It is true, but I would say more than that. Before I moved to New York, I had worked already in the studio scene in Vancouver a lot, and a record label called Network Records, which is now quite known with regards to Avril Lavigne and Lilith Fair, and a whole bunch of these other brand names, if you will, in more or less the international music scene. Well, I got into that environment because I won the gig with a band called Mauve, spelled Moev, and that's a techno psycho pop band. So when we talk about Uns and we talk, I actually have a history in that, but as a player, having to lock in with extremely tight rhythmic, quickly, right? Perfect time things. And so for me, I gained an appreciation also biophysically of what it requires of you as a player to kind of pocket with it, to kind of give it its kind of energy and beauty. And so at that time, one of the original members of Mauve had decided to leave the band and start the label, and that's what Network was. And Network negotiated and got deals with Atlantic, with what else? With a few other labels, but Mauve itself was on Atlantic. And so I did an incredible amount of touring with them all over the place. And then I got the gig with Sarah McLachlan because Sarah McLachlan is also
I love Sarah McLachlan.
Signed to Network.
Yeah.
And so I did some work with her.
Was that on the song Angel by any chance, or was it a different song?
Yeah. No. I'm before that era.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I got ants in my pants, and I think I want to chow down on bigger challenges. And so I just left Vancouver and essentially drove to New York and set up shop.
The rest is history.
And just went and hoped for the best. But I had a resume already that I was fairly certain would get me into most good level, significant level auditions. Yeah. And it did for a while. I won't speak to the auditions that I went to for certain artists that I did not get the gigs for, right? Because there are a whole bunch of them. Yeah. And that's the case for a ton of drummers that are working and active. You gotta take your lumps.
But that's the nature of it, right? That you have to be able to take the W's and the L's, right?
And it's not, and you can't take it personally. It's not about you're not good enough or you're not this enough. It's we know in arts it's such a personal decision. It's such a it's ephemeral. It's aesthetic. It's
a feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about it's non-sequential. So if you do enough of that and you get in the spots with enough people and you find you'd be amazed that the losses or the loses, if you will, you don't really think about them. You don't think about them.
It's the idea of having a goldfish memory when it comes to that stuff, eh? I've heard that that's a recipe for.
If you could believe it or not, what I will tell you, just for fun, is Delight. I auditioned for Delight. You can go and look that up. Maybe a lot of your listeners don't know who that is, but they were top of the pops, as it were, in that era. Wow. And it was, and I basically learned in that audition that some auditions are uniformly about optics and have nothing to do with your actual abilities on the instrument.
Yeah, interesting. The last one I want to ask you about, out of the kind of big name collaborations, and this is because I'm a true gamer at heart, is your work on Resident Evil. Because I heard that you worked on Resident Evil, and I was like, oh, what? I used to play that game when the PS1 came out, when the PS2 came out, so I'm a big fan, and as a gamer, I just had to ask about it.
With pleasure. This is hilarious. The first thing I want to tell everybody is I am not a zombie guy.
So no Last of Us for you.
I am not a
no Walking
I am
Dead
not
for you.
interested in body parts flying in different directions. So I don't like horror movies. I don't like honestly. But I had a friend whose name is Alexa, and he said, Ron, he was working at Capcom, and he's one of their sound designers and composers. He said, Ron, I really think you're the guy to help me do this particular, it's Resident Evil. I think it was 3.
Yeah,
and
that's the big one. Yeah,
And so I'm like, great. So I helped with the theme song, which is an absolutely hilarious, crazy kind of a swing big band type thing that I did part of it in the West Coast of, part of it in the West Coast of Canada and part of it in New York City.
Did you come up with the motifs for that, or were you playing along with some preconceived
We both
ideas?
did.
Yeah.
So he had this core idea, and I'm like, let me see if I can work and build a few things out from it. I did most, I would say, mostly some of the undertow, the drumming, and some of the other colorations, if you will. The big thing I did in that, and this is the thing I am most proud of in that, is I beat the living crap out of some of the largest bass drums you could ever imagine.
That sounds like fun.
Life. So we set them up in the studio, and there were 4 different sizes, and I'm like, I don't own, these 32, 34 inch, that you find in high schools, right? And so on. So I have a friend who told me a story. He said, yeah, my high school was getting rid of these bass drums. And so before they did that, and he was like 17 years old at the time, he said, I took my roller skate, I went to this, I put the bass drum on my roller skate, and I walked it home. And I said, I did this for 4 days in a row with all these bass drums.
Oh, good on him.
And he said, they were so big they couldn't even fit through a door, so they sat in the garage for years till they did a reno in his parents' house, and then they found a way to get it inside, to get them inside.
Yeah.
And so we set these bass drums up, and I basically did a whole whack of bass drum solos, where I would aggregate the different tonalities. I would be given.
Were you watching any footage while doing this, like of
So
the game
there was
itself?
some footage that was shown to me, which again, like I said, as a zombie guy, this was also in the early stages of the development of the visuals. So they would
Some more pixels than
well,
forms,
they were. It wasn't refined.
Yeah.
It was just, here is the scene. Here is what we're looking at developing as a scene and a scene structure, and then all the avenues that it's going to take, and blah blah blah. And so I fundamentally drafted all these different bass drum solo components, and with Alexa being there, and we just kind of.
And did you layer them up in the mix, or
they're all over the place. So anytime a zombie does a thing,
that's you. So if you guys are playing
that's
Resident
me.
Evil 3
Ron,
anytime,
the most not zombie guy on the planet.
So
Every time, so the chases,
Yeah.
the impending dooms, the everything.
Yeah.
It's all bass drums.
Fantastic.
It's all components of the things that I played.
Yeah.
And then were sampled and subsampled for the specific applications within the context of each of the scenes.
That is fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And did you ever play the game yourself?
Should I say this?
To test your handiwork?
No, negatory.
Well, it's like Joaquin Phoenix, who doesn't watch his own movies, right?
Tell me
Yeah.
what it was like to play the game.
I mean, it was scary. In particular, the audio, drives the fear when you have a zombie turn at you and you hear
That was a good answer to that. Great answer.
Yeah. Relating it back to this, but yeah, the sound design definitely made it huge. Exactly. That's the one. And I think the sound design of any game, it makes a huge difference to the experience of the player. In terms of also giving it that visceral fear.
It's become a more and more important part of the strategies associated with games and game development, particularly, I think, because of how immersive sound as a thematic is now, is newly getting integrated to features of anything mediatic. So content in terms of video games, content that's being posted online in certain frameworks to be augmented. So all these things to try and bring a little bit more reality.
Yeah.
And the one thing that the bass drums did, by the way we mic'd them and so on, they really drove that engagement, that kind of So I've been told by a lot of people that I scared them to death. and
You're like, my work here is done.
I accept it. I wasn't doing anything but being creative and artistic in what I was doing, honestly. And given, you know, the brief and the details and what it is that they were looking for and so on, I think we did a pretty good job. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the bestseller or the second bestseller from the series. And
those they were iconic. The third one was iconic. No.
Like some serious crazy
Stands the test
numbers
of
in
time.
terms of sales, like 30, 40 million units.
Yeah.
Kind
Wow,
of thing,
that's a lot of.
So, and I was just like, boom, boom.
Just a guy just playing the drums.
Just a guy playing bass drums.
Trying not to look at the screen.
Just a guy.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time and all of the insights from both of you. And what I wanted to ask before we go is if Ben, if you had anything that you wanted to say about your new work that's going to be coming out in 6 months-ish that you mentioned earlier. You know, what genre are you are you creating, and what are your hopes with this piece of work, with this EP that you're going to release?
The genre is good. That's the name of the genre. Good.
Yeah, because great music picks from all genres, doesn't it? And it's like a painting. You just every color is a different genre. You can, if it works, right?
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's probably most exciting the fact that there is honestly like no real just true genre to it. Mm-hmm. There's a drum and bass song we're doing this year, which I never really expected to be doing.
Oh, nice. You managed to convince Ron to.
I did.
Get a bit of unce in there.
I was half tempted to get like some prints shirted up saying Ron loves D&B, but
you should do it.
maybe next year.
Don't do that.
Just come off the
They
plane.
might go up
We
in
want
fire.
him to come back. We want him to come back.
True. But no, it's a big. It'll be good. I think probably 6 months is target to launch.
And you've been working on it for 3 years, is that right?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
4-ish.
Amazing. Yeah.
4-ish for this body
A
of
lot
work.
of time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
In the same way that Calvin has a catalog, right, of richness, and that not every song is a similar song to others. It's one of the reasons why, for me, like I said, Calvin Harris, as a reflection of what Benny is doing, is the best example. Every feature, every individual that participates has had a song, in a sense, drafted and crafted for them. No two have the same carryover. No two have the same sonic disposition or kind of unilateral colors, unlike many other creators in the genre where it's, while they like to use the term style to define what it is that they're doing, I just call it repetition.
Yeah. It becomes a bit of a box, Yeah,
exactly.
Well, you know, repetition is a feature of songwriting. It is an important component, but in the same way I beg modern songwriters and producers, I tell them, stop. For God's sake, stop using the same bloody soft synth packets.
Same sample
Stop.
loops and
Because it's not only that it's annoying to those of us who love music and wish to, you know, not limit but broaden, you know, from what the music offers. It's also the fact that the AIs built into Spotify, TuneCore, you name it, are going to stop your project from being published because for them, what you're doing,
thing.
same chords, same
yeah.
sounds, same thing. So they think it's you're pilfering from somebody else. And you're not. You're just not being creative.
Yeah, I was listening to Zed talk about, the producer and artist Zed, who's done some amazing songs, talk about how he tries to avoid getting into the sample repetition box where he then plays all of his arpeggiators. He programs them all by himself. He doesn't want to use any pre-stock arpeggiators. And I thought that was just fascinating as a good way to create a unique sound and something that hasn't been heard before.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think he's a very, very talented artist, Zed.
Yeah. And what I also love is that he talks very openly about his process, and it's very educational in all of
I mean,
this.
that's one of the beautiful things with all the modulars, right? That have come to become a normal part of certain people's creative process. Every little twiddle, something else is happening, and these are sound generators, but at the core of what sound generation is. It's not an aggregated prefab, sandwich you're buying off the shelf at a store.
Yeah.
It can be anything.
And I'm like, I respect people who do that.
Go
But
the
it's-
extra mile, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it takes time
Yeah.
to learn and understand what these things are and how to kind of customize and become appropriate for the context of what you're doing. Right? And that's what we, Ben and I have talked about endlessly.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Tonality on
I
things.
don't care that this song is going to get marketing defined as this or that or whatever. That's immaterial. It has nothing to do with the creation process. You must be true to the core of what this song is. A song is a child. A child, if you don't listen to your child is going to be very upset with you. He might need to go take a dump. He might be hungry. He might not like the color of the socks.
I know
you put
all
on
about
him.
this at the moment.
I know you know all about this, right? So if you are really honoring, and if you believe as I do that every song is a child, then you must listen to what the child is telling you.
Yeah.
And eventually you chaperone this child through its kind of evolution in life, and he grows up and he learns things. And he learns that, okay, maybe that shirt was okay, but only on Sundays,
Yeah.
or whatever. And he doesn't like this hamburger, but he likes this hamburger, which for us might mean a little extra dip at 3K just because.
Yeah.
And if you listen to the child, then you release him like any kid, and like any parent knows that has a kid. You release them into society, and off they go, and you hope that you've given them all the resources necessary to survive and to thrive and to be a good thing for the
Best
planet.
version of themselves.
If that's so that's another thing. I just tell that to every artist. I said, if you think of it that way, you got to teach yourself how to listen to your child.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect place for us to end as well, because it's a powerful message for artists to take away. And for anyone who wants to, it's not just for music, right? But it's for anything that you want to build in life. That message, I think, it rings true and really applies.
Yeah, anything that you really care about.
Yeah.
Nathan,
So-
thank you for this wonderous opportunity.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for your time. I
appreciate
really
it. Thank
enjoyed
you.
the long format interview. We're going to get, this is heaps of content for me, so thank you. Yeah.
I'm so sorry in advance for the next 6 months of editing. That's going to be around
Yeah, so this is going to come out sometime in 2027.
yeah.
Your album is going to come out before this comes out.
Exactly.
All right,
That's
thanks.
just the time for it to airdrop to the computer.
That's the one. Thanks, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.